Hi, my name is Ann White. I'd like to welcome all of you to tonight's community conversation, Ask the Expert, about master gardening. So I think without further ado, I want to introduce Chris. So you can just wave, Chris and Nancy and Val and Susan, who are master gardeners. To become a master gardener, it takes coursework and a dedication to provide community service hours and ongoing education. This is through the collaboration. It's a cooperative extension with Penn State, and in our county we have 65 designated master gardeners of many ages, up to 90, the ladies were telling me. So I want to thank you all for coming tonight for this really informative session. I'm kind of going to be standing around passing the mic so that we can make sure we get it all on audio. So who's starting? Susan.
And I'm going to talk to you about planting bulbs in the fall. And first I want to show you some flowers that you will get from planting bulbs in the fall. These are probably familiar to all of you: daffodils, tulips, bearded iris. But don't just dismiss them and say, oh yeah, I have daffodils, because the colors have changed. Daffodils can now look like roses, and tulips are no longer just plain tulips. They can be fringed, they can be ruffled, they can be two colors instead of just one on a plant. We also have allium. If you've never grown this, it's really fun. It comes up and it's just like a big puff ball. This one is purple, but they also come in white and some other shades, darker purples maybe. This one is an anemone, a big flower, pretty showy. Then we have some smaller ones. Starflower, obviously you can see where it got its name. Looks like a little star. Mediterranean bells. Summer snowflake. Kind of look like snowdrops, very early bloomers. And the Lycoris is called a magic lily. Small flower, just kind of bursts into bloom. Bright colors, good to have. Fritillaria, with its head dropping down. Freesias coming in lots of different colors. And crocuses, which are very early bloomers as well. Today you will get a little package of remembrance crocus bulbs. And because they're remembrance, you can plant them somewhere in memory of someone that you've lost, perhaps a loved one, or even a pet that you've lost. Now you might want to know where you can get bulbs to plant. Well, our local stores have them. Home Depot has bulbs. Tractor Supply has bulbs. Walmart has bulbs. You can also order from catalogs, and I'm going to pass. You can also get bulbs perhaps from friends if they've divided their plantings and have leftovers, so that's a nice economical way to get bulbs. So why do we have to plant tulips and daffodils and the other flowers in the fall when we plant a lot of other things in the spring? It's because these kinds of flowers need a dormant cold period. And during that time, they send down their roots and they get ready to bloom. Without the cold period, they really don't do so well. If you live in the south, you can plant them, but you might have to use a different approach. You might have to refrigerate them for a while so they have some dormancy time. We don't have to worry about that. It will be plenty cold. If you buy bulbs and, like some of us, you forgot that you bought them and you found them and now it's February, what should you do with them? Go ahead and plant them if they're still firm. If they're mushy, probably you're not going to get good results. But if they're still firm, go ahead and plant them, even if you have to chisel through the ground. If you have an erratic spring, as we often do, You've planted things nicely and you're waiting, and then you get warm weather and then you get cold weather. If the bulbs start coming up, is this going to bother them? Probably not. They're probably going to be just fine. It might set them back a little time-wise, but they should still bloom all right for you. Let's see. I have a lot of questions and answers because I thought that would be an easy way to go through this material. One question that people have is, what do you do if squirrels or moles or other critters eat your bulbs? And one gardener had a wonderful idea of planting the bulbs, covering them with soil, and then putting down chicken wire, covering the chicken wire with mulch. The mulch holds the chicken wire in place. The chicken wire stops critters, and by putting mulch on top, you've got a nice looking bed. Even though things aren't blooming yet, it looks like you're doing a good job. When should you plant bulbs? Well, you should make sure that you do it before the ground freezes. Earlier is better. You can really plant in August or September, but certainly now is prime time and will be for several more weeks until the ground freezes. You usually plant the bulb as deep as the bulb is tall. So if it's this tall, you would plant it that deep. You plant the flat side down because the blooming part is the pointy side. It's possible for some tulips to come back year after year without being planted, but most of them have to have the dormancy, and so they're not just going to come back all the time. They are native to Central Asia, so our climate is a little less forgiving than Central Asia. If you buy bulbs and you aren't ready to plant yet, what should you do with them? You want to make sure to keep them cool and dry, because if they get moist, they're going to start disintegrating and you're going to end up with mush, which isn't going to grow well. After you have planted bulbs and you've enjoyed the blooms, what do you do with them then? You're supposed to wait until the foliage dies back, not just the flower, but the actual leaves and stem before you do anything. And then you can take the flowers off when they're done blooming, but don't get too excited about removing foliage. You should wait at least 8 weeks, and then, especially if they're in a place where you really would like to mow the grass, but the bulbs are right there. Just wait a while. And when the foliage withers, dies back, then it's okay to probably mow over them. You can feed your bulbs both in the fall and in the spring. So just a light feeding and they should be fine. Somebody asked the question about deer-resistant spring bulbs, those of you who live in areas where deer visit. You can usually get away with deer not bothering daffodils, allium, any of that stuff, unless it's a really, really cold winter and they're desperate. And then they're going to eat anything they can find, which probably will include your bulbs. Does anybody have any questions about planting bulbs?
Does chicken wire help for moles? No?
I'm not sure. Probably it would be more effective for squirrels and things like that that would dig down. I don't know what you can do about moles. Get a cat, I think.
I've tried chewing gum there, I've tried all kinds of stuff.
Valerie has an idea.
One method that some people like to use is you get a big pot, a plastic pot is fine, make sure that it's deep. Plant your bulbs in the pot and then sink the pot into the ground because the moles can't go through the plastic.
Could you leave a wet top above the soil?
Well, you would plant your bulb as deep in the pot as you would in the ground, and so your pot will be level with your surface.
Yeah, that's a good idea. They can't get in through the plastic.
Yeah.
When you're trying to decide where to plant your bulbs, keep in mind that trees aren't going to have leaves when these flowers are blooming. So it's okay to put the bed close to trees because by the time the trees leaf out, the bulbs will be done blooming. So if you think you don't have a place, probably you do have a place. You just need to consider that.
If the bulbs look dried out, do you soak them first and then plant them?
You don't want to get them wet. Wet is not good. If they've dried out, then it's,
Too late.
well, you can try. Give it your best shot.
Do you have to dig them up?
No.
My mother used to dig the bulbs up.
You have to dig up gladiolas and you have to dig up dahlias, two of the summer bloomers, but no, once they're in the ground, they're good.
How would you transplant them if you wanted to move them?
You probably wouldn't transplant until spring, I don't think.
You would want to wait until after they died off. The reason why you wait is the flower dies first. The leaves are still green. They're picking up nutrients to add stores of sugar in the bulb. If you tear off those leaves before they've had a chance to restore the bulb, then your bulb loses its viability and it might not come back. So you want to wait until those leaves die back, then you can dig them. It's easier to use a spading forks and dig out away from where they are so you don't slice into your bulb.
Many of us have sliced through the bulbs. That is not good. Yes?
Is daffodils grow in any kind of soil?
I don't think they're terribly fussy.
And bloom?
Yeah, yes, and bloom.
My grandmother used to do that, but they cut them so there's still a little bit of green left. They're not as tall, but there's still enough green that they can manufacture food.
Okay, thank you for your attention.
Hey, just for a minute, I'm going to have you pretend you're at home in your living room and you have the TV on. And you're tuned into the Pollinator News Network, which is PNN. I know a lot of you watch CNN, but this is PNN. And I'm going to be the reporter. So I'm Mandy Monarch from Pollinator News Network, PNN, with some breaking news. We are live right here waiting for Queen Bee to come out of her hive. We have been told that she will have an important announcement. To give you some background on what we think she may be talking about, we're going to kind of review our previous broadcasts. So back in April, PNN was there first with the news that President Obama had announced the National Pollinator Initiative. My pollinator friends like Queen Bee are so important that the president had actually directed all federal agencies to help in the area of pollinator conservation through research, policy, education, and action. The president made his plea across the country for people to join the Burpee Bee and Butterfly Brigade and plant 1 million seed packets across the nation. This was put into place because of the decline of pollinators like me and queen bee and her hives, as well as birds and other pollinators that keep our flowers blooming and help our foods to grow. And I'll just share with you some of our pollinator friends. And you can see from the poster, butterflies, hummingbirds, even bats in other countries are definitely pollinators. And our poster over here shows how important queen bee is, because she has pollinated the female flower on the pumpkin plant, and then that produces the pumpkin, which you get to enjoy jack-o'-lanterns and pumpkin pie. So that's not bad. And I am so excited about these packets because inside there are 2 kinds of milkweed. And we have a poster over here that shows you 3 kinds of milkweed: butterfly weed, swamp milkweed, and common milkweed. And actually, milkweed is the only thing that monarch butterflies like me can lay their eggs on. That is it. So we need those for our little larvae or caterpillars to eat. And they also have the yummiest nectar. They have some beautiful flowers and the yummiest nectar. So I think Queen Bee is coming right now. Oh my goodness, she is. Now,
I smell something yummy.
Queen, yeah. Oh, you're into the flowers, aren't you? Okay, I'm Mandy Monarch Queen Bee from PNN, and people nationwide are listening for this important announcement that you're going to be making.
Nice to meet all of you. I would like to take this opportunity to tell President Obama thanks for recognizing how important pollinators such as bees and butterflies really are. Did you know that one of my worker bees will visit 2 million flowers to make just 1 pound of honey? You can thank a pollinator for 1 out of every 3 bites of food you eat, and for pollinating fruit, nut, and vegetable crops throughout the world. Just think of a world without oranges, apples, almonds, chocolate, cherries, plums, and strawberries, and many, many others. I wanted to announce that individuals receiving the Burpee bee and butterfly seed packets are appreciated by me and my worker bees, and helping to provide pollinators with yummy nectar sources across the United States. If everyone keeps planting, it will make a positive difference in helping to reverse the decline of our pollinators. Because as many of you probably know, you probably haven't seen as many of us around the last few years. Is that true? You haven't seen us buzzing in your clover and in your apple orchards as much as you used to? All pollinators appreciate the fact that if pesticides are used, apply them please at dusk and when the flowers are not blooming. Always read those labels. Don't forget to plant native plants. Since these plants don't require the soil amendments, you don't have to put as much fertilizer on them because they're native. They've been here for hundreds and sometimes thousands of years, and they're already adapted to our area, and they provide just what our pollinators need. Please leave your flower pruning and your cleanup until spring. Now, this is different than probably what a lot of you are used to doing, because as I buzz around, I see a lot of you out there with your clippers right now, trimming down those butterfly bushes and those yummy cone flowers that look like they're dead. But you know what? They have a lot of seeds still on them that all of the birds can enjoy during the winter. So wait and clean up in the spring so that, like I said, my bird friends can enjoy those delicious seeds. And a lot of times it's healthier to wait until pruning in the springtime for some of your plants. This seed packet, Mandy, there we go, contains 21 varieties of flowers,
offering a yummy buffet of tastes for all of us pollinators. It's also a balanced mix of shape, color, plant habitat, and scents that provide blooms from early spring to late fall. And even better, the packet contains 60% native plants. Well, I have to be going. I've got to keep those hives alive. I've got a lot of work to do. So here you go, Mandy. Okay, well, you made me hungry. I hope it's almost supper time.
Always,
Talking about
always
all that
supper time in the
buffet.
hive.
You have just heard from Queen Bee live on Pollinator News Network. To recap for us, Queen Bee thanked President Obama and individuals nationwide who are planting the seed packets to help our pollinators survive. Our live audience here will receive a seed packet to plant. Fall is the best time to plant your packets, so we're right on time, as well as other perennial seeds. Purple cone flowers are one of my favorites, and here's a picture of the purple cone flower. Yummy. Oh, I am getting hungry. It is an easy landing flower, and when they are planted in groups, they are just easy to spot, and my 3-course meal is in one place. Yummy, yummy, yummy. To plant purple cone flowers, simply take a container, and you want to put some drainage holes in it. Fill it with a seed starter mix or a light potting mix, and sprinkle your seeds on top with a little sand, which will hold them from blowing away. And then don't forget to put on, and I'll grab one to show you. This is a little big, but you'll get the idea, to put something like this over it, because those doggone kitty cats love to use it as a litter pan. So we just can't have that. So don't forget to put that on there. And then that way, if it has holes in it, it just lets the rain and the sun come in, but it'll keep those kitty cats out. The seed should be planted after the first frost. And I see Queen Bee buzzing by. I wonder if she would be willing to tell us more about how to plant this beautiful seed packet that we're going to be receiving. Queen Bee, would you have a few minutes to speak to our listeners at PNN?
Well, I only have a few minutes because I have to make a beeline back to the hive. But let me tell you about your seed packet. It can be planted right in the ground after the first frost. So pretty soon, I think we'll be getting a frost not too long from now, maybe even this weekend. Fall is a great time to plant the seeds, since this is when nature normally does it. If you think about it, the milkweed, those kind of things that are native, they drop their seeds on the soil right now, and they lay there all winter and sprout in the spring just fine. These seeds that we're giving you will survive the winter and sprout at the right time in the spring. Start by choosing a sunny spot and clear an area up to 100 square feet by removing the grass and the plants that are in that area. Next, loosen the soil and level it and smooth the area. You can toss those seeds like you're pretending to feed chickens. Or mix the seeds with 2 cups of sand or organic cat litter and lime that is in pellets, and then broadcast with a handheld spreader. Smooth with a garden rake, and don't cover it, but gently water it. And that should do it, Mandy.
All
and they
right.
should sprout in the spring.
And we have another native to hand out, which this is a picture of. It's a beautiful native, yummy too. I know you like it very well too. It's narrow leaf mountain mint. And maybe, Mandy, could you maybe have the audience help us out and learn some facts about that? You want to have someone pull a fact out for us? And it's quite an interesting. Oh, I'm glad you're going to be happy to do that for us. Maybe they can share that with us, whatever it says.
It was used in herbal teas and by native tribes as a seasoning in food.
So could be used as seasoning or in herbal teas.
Another one, Mandy?
Sure.
It is a native and a great nectar source for pollinators.
by the way, you will receive, our live audience will receive some seed. They look very small, just like little pieces of pepper, but they are from Ernst Conservation Seeds. Wasn't that a nice?
1 ounce of seed contains 375,000 seeds.
1 ounce. And you can see, because they're very, very tiny. You're just buzzing right along there.
Rub leaves on skin to repel mosquitoes.
So that's awesome. You know, rub it on your skin to repel those mosquitoes. Who can't use that? Got to get those people awake in the back row.
It spreads quickly by...
Rhizomes.
Okay, right. So it makes a good soil stabilizer.
It does, but you know, you'd want to be careful where you plant it too, because we know it can take over. Anything can if you give it time. Mandy, you're Queen Bee, you're getting your exercise today.
This plant has a minty smell. Blooms in July and August, 2 to 3 foot tall.
I think that's it, Andy.
All right. Well, they're going to be so happy because at the end, they're going to get all these nice free seeds. So I think that our PNN session is done. And this is Mandy Monarch signing off. I want you to stay tuned to this station because we have Valerie Walton presenting microgreens.
Like any nectar source. So we will go wherever we find the honey. But the biggest problem is probably to the bee because sometimes we get trapped in there and then we die. So yeah, it's just one of those things, but it's not hurting us at all.
Any other?
When did you say that we plant the mint?
It would be the same time. You can plant it, you know, after the first frost.
Have any of you bought sprouts of your own? One of my favorite things to do is to get really nice fresh bread, smear a ton of cream cheese on it, and then put a bunch of alfalfa sprouts and have a sandwich out of that. You can throw a tomato in there too, but that is just so delicious. I'm going to talk about soaks, sprouts, and microgreens. It's an alternative way to get really good vitamins and minerals in a small amount of food that you can grow in the wintertime. You can grow on your windowsill, your counters. It does take a little bit of effort to make them grow, but just about anybody could. You can use soaked sprouts or microgreens in salads, on your sandwiches, in your meatloaf, your meatballs, your hamburgers, omelets, scrambled eggs, stir fry, or just use them as snacks. I have here, these are lentil sprouts. They kind of all grow together here. And this is a red lentil. You just go to the grocery store and buy a package of lentils that you can cook up to make soup. Instead of cooking them, you turn them into sprouts, and they're very nutty. If people would like to try some of these, they can. I've got a whole bunch up here. Soaks, you take some of the bigger seeds like garbanzo beans or pumpkin or sunflower. You soak them for 1 to 4 hours just to soften them up. And you can use raw peanuts. It's just a different way of getting those nutty flavors. It makes it kind of gets them buttery. You can do that with the beans, the garbanzo beans, to make hummus. You soak them a little bit and make your own hummus. So you get a fresher taste than those little containers you buy in the store that have an expiration date of 3 weeks from now. Raw peanuts, when you can soak them for 12 hours. They contain calcium, iron, magnesium, A, B, C, and D. If you want to use them as a sprout, it takes them 3 days to sprout. Almonds you soak for 12 hours also, and it takes them 3 days to sprout. It just softens up the nut a little bit so that it gives you a different texture, and you can use it in a different way. The chickpeas contain amino acids, vitamins A and C, and they're very high in protein. So if you just soak them for a few hours, you can use that as a snack to get a really good protein boost during the day. Pumpkin seeds, you can soak for 1 to 4 hours. They contain potassium, phosphorus, vitamins A, B, C, and D. And sunflowers are really high in amino acids. Okay, that's soaks. You just soak them in water. You cover them in water for 1 to 4 hours or 12 hours if you have the peanuts or almonds. You drain it off and then you can use them. If you don't use all of them at one time, you put them in the refrigerator they'll last for 3 or 4 days. Okay, sprouts are a little bit different. There are artificial sprouters like this. Some of them are round. You can buy them. There's a few catalogs here that have sprouting kits. It comes with a lid that is vented because you want air to get to your sprouts. You don't want them suffocating. This one has 2 different trays. They're also vented because what you do is you soak your seeds for about 8 hours, then you put them into your sprouter. And every 12 hours or twice a day, they can't tell time, so it won't matter. You rinse them. The reason why you do this is you want your seeds to stay damp and wet, because once they start the germination process, if they dry out, they won't do anything more. So twice a day you rinse them, and they can stay wet this way and have the opportunity to sprout. The bottom container is solid because it catches the water that drains off of your trays. Doesn't that look like fun? This, you see, won't even go anywhere. This is this actually is a microgreen stage, but this is called teff, T-E-F-F. One of my Master Gardener friends found this summer, and she said that she just loves it. I've never eaten it. This is the first time I've grown it. But if anybody would like to try teff, now the seeds are so minuscule that I put a coffee filter or a paper towel in here. And then you can just lift the whole thing out and pull off your little greens and eat them. So anybody wants to be adventurous, they can do that. Another way that you can do it, there are official growing bags. They're cloth bags. Some of them are muslin, some of them are closer to cheesecloth, that you can put your sprout seeds in there, and you just rinse your bag and leave everything in there. And when they get to the sprout stage that you want, you put them in the refrigerator until you've eaten them all up. You can also use just a plain jar, mason jar, whatever, and put cheesecloth or paper towel, one of the paper towels that will hold together, over the top. You put your water in there to rinse them, and then you put your cover back on and turn it upside down. The water will drain out. And then you shake your seeds so that they grow along the sides. This is a vented top that came with a round sprouter that I used to have. And so now I just use it for, you turn them upside down, let your water drain out this way. If you have a large amount of seeds, like if you want to do quinoa as a sprout. This is quinoa. How many of you are familiar with that? It's a fantastic thing. You can sprout quinoa also, and because it's fairly small, you soak it for about 8 hours, and then if you want to get a little sieve, pour it into the sieve, and then you can spread it out on like a cookie sheet or any kind of a pan, and then you just put your water in that and run them through this again. Quinoa is a great thing to do. All of these seeds that are up here are really nice. One of the seeds up here is the, that's not it, Organic Ancient Eastern Blend. And, okay, now I'm confused. This is alfalfa. This is my organic blend, which makes this my 3-part salad sprouting mix. Now, these are at a microgreen stage. You can use the same type of seed. You want to make sure that your seed is organic and one that is designed for sprouting, because you don't want to just go buy seed and try and use it. You don't know what it's been treated with. You get a seed that you know is for sprouting. This is a microgreen stage, which is a little bit beyond sprouts. They're all the same thing, just at different stages of their growth. Now, if you go to a fancy restaurant, you may get a salad that has a bed of arugula and mixed spring greens with microgreens on top. And you'll pay a lot of money for it. And all it is a baby plant. So what you do to do microgreens is get a container that has holes in it so that you don't overwater, because overwatering either with the sprouts or the microgreens will cause mold, and then you don't want to eat it. The little berry containers you get from the store, they have slots in the bottom. You put sterile soil in the bottom, just like, there's about 1/3 of an inch of soil in here. You sprinkle your seeds thickly. You know, if you're planting, they tell you to have your carrots, 6 inches apart or whatever, because they need space to grow. These are only going to grow for 10 days to 2 weeks. They don't care if their roots are crowded, because they're not really going to develop any further. So when they get to this stage, you do the same thing with them. You put your seeds in thickly, put a very tiny amount of, just a whisper of soil on top, tamp it down, and then I usually mist them with a little bottle. And then twice a day you do the same thing, because you want them to stay damp. You don't want to stop the process after it's started. You just mist your little plants twice a day. And then when they get to this size, you take your scissors and you cut them off. And then pardon?
And you just eat them like that? Or
Yeah.
put them on a salad?
You put them, I like to put them in my omelets or on a sandwich. You can put them in your meatloaf to add, especially if you have kids that don't want to eat vegetables. Mm-hmm. You can just throw this in, and
I've never heard of microgreens, so they're more like nutrient rich?
It's concentrated nutrients. So it's concentrated vitamins and different amino acids, depending on which one you're planting. So
I have one more question, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Do they have to be like in a heat? Do you have to have them in like kind of a warm environment to get them to grow?
No, usually things will start sprouting if they're at least 60 degrees. My house, I keep it 62, and I have no trouble getting sprouts to sprout. If you want to add a heat source to make them sprout more quickly, put them on top of the refrigerator. And you like that?
I'm getting a couple different flavors. Like a nutty taste, a radishy taste, and
Right.
radish or like onion.
Right. So that's another thing that you can nibble on. This is alfalfa, which is very nutritious. Has a lot of iron in it. And you need to try some lentils.
I'm surprised because I thought like you wouldn't want to eat something like that, like at that stage. You know what I mean? I'm just in shock because I thought, oh my gosh, it's starting to grow. You throw it out.
So you can come up and grab some of this stuff and eat it. It's delicious, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like your lentils?
I'm not a lentil eater. I gave them to her. But I like the other stuff better.
You miss the whole point. They don't taste like lentils when they're sprouts. They taste kind of like nuts, right? Yeah. Okay. So some of the you can do lentils, chia seeds. You know, the chia pets that we all laugh at. Chia seeds are really nutritious. They're very high in fiber. Of course, all of this stuff is high in fiber. Chia is a little bit different because if it gets wet, it kind of gets gelatinous and gooey and looks like the blob that ate Pittsburgh. So what you do with chia, is you can, it's really good mixed in yogurt. You can, you don't want to put it in water. You just want to kind of get it wet. Mist a little bit to put it in whatever you're eating, but you have to eat it like 15 minutes after you get it wet because then it turns to gelatinous blob. But it's good. It's really good if you can mix it in something so that you get the fiber and the moisture from it, but you don't get the texture, which is a little off. Okay, so for microgreens, you need a shallow container and sterile soil. You want to make sure your seeds are certified to be used for sprouting or microgreens. You need to have airflow, which is why you have a vented container. And once they start to grow, then you would take your lid off anyway. You wet your soil, you sprinkle the seeds on top, just barely cover them, and then mist them twice a day to keep it moist so that they are going to grow.
Where do you find sterile soil?
You can get it at Walmart or any of the places that sell. What you want to look for is a seed starting mix. It doesn't have fertilizers in it. Some of the places, Al's Melons sells this stuff called Pro Mix, which comes in a big bale. You can use it to start your plants in the spring. You can use it in your house plants to amend the soil and make it better. You can use it for all sorts of things outside. But it's also sterile so that you can use it for doing microgreens. Well, I made a mess up here. These are some of the things that you can grow as microgreens. Arugula, amaranth. Now, I've never eaten amaranth, and I grew it this year and have beautiful, huge amaranth plants, but I don't know if it's a kind that you can eat. So I'm going to have to investigate that. Cress, broccoli, cilantro, basil, beets. If you're somebody who likes beet greens, instead of waiting for the beets to get ripe so you can get them, you can plant beet seeds as a microgreen, and when they get to be about 2 inches tall, you cut them off and eat just your little greens. They're just super packed with nutrients. Celery. Now, you don't want to grow, do you know there's different kinds of celery? the kind you buy in the store is not the kind you want to be planting. What you want to plant is called cutting celery. It's used more for the leaves on top than for the stalks. The stalks really don't develop right. And that's what the kind of seed that you want to use for your microgreens. The different Swiss chards, chives, red clover, wheat. You can get wheatgrass. You know, in the movies they drink wheatgrass juice to bulk up and all that. Well, you can eat your wheatgrass here. Fennel, which gives you a really licorice taste. Kale, the mustards are really good as microgreens. Any of the lettuces, Mizuna is one of the oriental ones. Tatsoi is a kind of mustard. Endive, lentils. Cabbages, pak choi, radishes. There's radishes in the salad mix, so that's what you were tasting. So you can get the radish taste without, you know, having the big bulb there. And then sunflowers. So these are some of the things that you can grow as microgreens. Did you have a question?
Yes. So, potting soil. Okay.
I would not use potting soil because you don't know what they have added to it. Usually they put in some type of fertilizer, and that's a big thing now. They put in chemicals to hold on to moisture, and a fertilizer, just a generic fertilizer that is usually in potting soils. So you don't want to be eating that.
So any edibles, tomatoes, anything you're growing, you recommend sterile soil? Or just microgreens?
Just to start, if you're starting seeds in the spring that have to be started indoors and then you take them out and plant them, we use the sterile soil for that too. Just because there are different diseases that seeds can get as they're starting, and if you have any kind of an organism in your soil, that seed can be killed off. So that's why you don't want to do anything but a sterile soil.
The other thing too is seed starting mix is a lot lighter than potting soil, and it gives the seeds more opportunity to be able to push through more easily. So that's another benefit to using seed starting mix compared to regular potting soil for germination.
So that can actually say sterile seed mix?
It says seed starting mix. That's what it should say. It may say on there somewhere that it's sterile, but if it's a seed starting mix, it will be sterile. Okay. Now, where you can get some of these things, I want to point out two books that I got recently that have just been fantastic with recipes. One is The Speedy Vegetable Garden, which teaches you all about how to grow, do soaked sprouts and microgreens. It has all different kinds of recipes about what you can do with them. This is from Timber Press, which has a lot of educational books. And the other one, which is really fun, is Going with the Grain, Quinoa, Farro, Spelt, Chia, and more. So it's concentrating on using all the grains that we're not used to having, but that are very nutritious for us and easy to use. You can get a lot of these different types of things at some of the grocery stores. I know Valesky's has some of the different things. Generally, they have a lot of different quinoas and things. They have amaranth also. Generally, if you're going to get a lot of sprouting seeds, you want to go to the catalogs or online. Alice Solander down at the Market House has a lot of different sprouting seeds. She also has, these are the last two that she had. The benefits of home sprouting, it goes into how to get started on it, there's a DVD that you can get. She has that down at the Market House. So if you want to get started right away, go to the Market House and Alice will help you out. So if anybody wants to look at one of these or take one of these, they can. Some of the catalogs that have good sources, botanical interests, and it's botanicalinterest.com. They have really nice seeds. Who is this? This is Sow True Seed, which you might not have heard from. It's SOW. They have seed sprouting kits that you can buy the whole kit, and the seeds also. So some of the seed catalogs that are a little less known to you are ones that have these types of seeds in them. Most of the seeds that are here tonight are from Gardens Alive. And we'll pass this around to let you see what some of them are like. Any questions? Just a window. Well, you should move. Barring that, they don't necessarily have to have direct sunlight. They just need light because they're not growing to maturity. Now, if you wanted to grow any of these to maturity, you would need sunlight. But they're only growing for 10 days to 2 weeks. So if you have any kind of a window, you would have enough light for them to grow. They might be too crowded so that there's not enough airflow. And do you just rinse them?
Yes.
If you, I've never had that happen, so I think it might be overcrowding.
Okay.
Or where are your seeds? Good seeds?
I got them from Gardens Alive.
Okay. So they should be not infected with anything. I would say they're probably too crowded. Yeah, I've never had that happen. And just rinse them through and then you let them drain and they should be okay. Okay, tomato blight has been a problem for the last couple of years. It is an airborne fungus. So if anybody in 5 miles of you gets it, you're going to get it too because you just can't help it. Because it is a fungus, you can use fungicides, which are generally a spray-on thing. There are a number of varieties. I would use the one that was least toxic if you can read that on your label. You want to spray the plants before you see any signs.
No, there's two types of blight too. There's the blight that kills the tomato very quickly in just a couple of days, and that is airborne, and there's very little you can do, and once your plant is infected, there is no way to save it. The tomatoes that look okay are still safe to eat. However, the best thing to do is to remove the plant immediately, put it into a bag, do not compost it, and put it into a bag and dispose of it. And do not plant tomatoes in that same spot again next year.
How long between?
I do believe that can be soil-borne for many years, actually. Do you know, Valerie, what the...
Well, I know they say at least 3 years, but, and when you get rid of your plants, do not compost them because you're just putting that fungus into your compost. You throw them in the trash. Or burn them. Supposedly, the late blight is killed by frost.
That's what I'm getting.
So if you have your tomatoes in an area, don't mulch that area, leave it bare so that it's going to get the most cold that it can. But I think it's at least 3 years before you can, and any of the plants that are related to tomatoes, like if you plant potatoes, you don't plant them in the same place.
How about squash? I need to get my squash.
Blight or
up and blocks the nutrients from flowing, and it will collapse immediately and die. And there's a number of things that you can do. We can talk about preventing that.
If you can't plant in the same area, how far away do you need to be safe?
I mean, that would, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I mean, it would be, it's airborne, so it would depend on how far it's spread in the soil, you know, already. There's
Well,
no
that's
way
what
to
I wondered.
really know for sure.
Spread through the plant into the soil, and I thought maybe there was a certain safe distance or something.
I don't either, but I move a good number of feet away.
The other type of blight I was going to comment about, the other type of blight, there's a slow-moving blight that can affect your tomatoes as well, and that's where you see gradually yellow from the bottom up. The leaves will gradually yellow, and one of the things you can do organically for that is just to remove those leaves that you see yellowing and make sure you have good air circulation around your plants, because that will be encouraged to develop if the conditions are really moist. I mean, a lot of it got cold when we had the really wet weather early in the spring, but then a lot of my plants seem to recover very nicely from that once it dried out a bit. You don't want to let any kind of diseased leaves fall and remain on the soil either. So be diligent about cleaning up around the bottom of your plant, and anything that falls, get that out of the soil as quickly as you can too, to prevent any kind of spread of any of the fungus that might be in that, in whatever fell.
Valerie, I know you look at a lot of seed. Isn't there some seeds that are being, you know, generated now that are saying more blight resistant? So you might want to look for a variety like that.
Because it's been kind of a national problem for the last couple of years, the seed companies that grow new types of seeds are trying to get blight-resistant varieties. So if you look at some of the catalogs, you'll find in some of the tomato areas and the potato areas that they do stress that it's more blight-resistant. So you might want to buy those. The other thing that I think is important is the big box stores. Their plants are shipped in from all over the country. So you don't know, if you're buying their plants, what it is they're carrying. So if you're going to buy your tomatoes or different types of plants, go to a local source so that you limit the amount of disease that might be brought into your garden. You know, there are people at the market house that sell, Al's knowing some of the other nurseries around here that they grow their own, so we know that they're limited in what diseases might be carried in. Now, two of our plants up here that we have are hemstemon. They're little baby plants. They should flower next year. They can be planted right now. They're perennials. They are pollinator plants, so Queen Bee would be happy. And they bloom late spring, early summer. The house plant over there is a curly spider plant. The leaves curl up. The stems, you can see the stem is kind of going, and they just are so much different than the normal spider plants. So if anybody's interested in that. And what's your other plant there?
Anise hyssop.
Anise hyssop, which is also a pollinator plant.
Bees love it.
Right. And we have a little Santa Claus gourd. We have a plant nanny, which you put your bottle on and stick it down in so it waters the plant itself. And we have all the seeds and the bulbs up here. There are two bags, Master Gardener bags. There's a complete guide to orchids, and there's Easy Care landscape plans. So,
And the gloves go with the plants. These are all raffle gifts, by the way. We're going to call the numbers in a minute, and then we have a little garden pond. So those are our gifts.
Did everyone get a chance to sign in?
Did everyone sign it?
Thank everyone for coming out this evening. I think we've got some information that we can make our gardens and whatnot look better for the fall, or for next spring. So thank you all.